Googling real quick. Hi, I'm Bonnie Claire, and this is my channel Here for Lit, where we talk all about books. And right now it's March, and a lot of people are doing middle grade March, and I do love some middle grade books. So I thought I'd get on here and share 10 of my favorite middle grade books that even if you're well beyond your middle grade years, I think you'd still enjoy. One of my all-time favorites that I think changed my brain, maybe. It just showed me the potential of a truly good story, was The Giver by Lois Lowry. This is a story about Jonas, and he lives in this dystopian society, and they've really tried to create this ideal community. It's very focused on uniformity, like there's a lack of color. The point is to try to eliminate, pain and sadness. And as the children grow, they're assigned these roles in the society, and Jonas gets assigned a role as the receiver. And so he kind of becomes this apprentice to this man known as the Giver. And the Giver stores these memories from before this society existed. And so Jonas starts to receive these memories. I just thought it was the coolest story. And you see, it definitely challenges the idea of, is life really meant to be devoid of bad feelings too? If you have not read The Giver, you need to read The Giver. I love this book so much. And it was one of my first times encountering a pretty ambiguous ending, which I thought was so frustrating at the time, but I love to revisit this book as an adult and just as I've gone through different stages in my life, and you read it differently at the end. But I will not spoil anything, but it's one of my all-time favorite books. The next is The Phantom Tollbooth. I actually read this for the first time recently, like in the last 2 years probably, and it's by Norton Juster. This is about a boy, Milo. He's just bored, and so one day this mysterious toll booth appears and he decides to go through it, and he enters this world where he just encounters bizarre places and characters, and it is such a clever book. It's funny. I almost think you might appreciate more as an adult than as a child, but I think it plays to both kinds of humor where you can enjoy it in many stages of your life. So if you haven't read this one, you need to read this one. It's just clever. It's so funny. Next is The Westing Game by Ellen Raskin. And I remember reading this in 5th grade, and I think it was for school. So I don't know if I read it or the teacher read it to me, but it's tied to 5th grade somehow. And I loved it. This was another one where it was just so different from anything I'd read, and I think it is partially responsible for starting my love for mysteries and solving puzzles throughout a book. This eccentric millionaire leaves behind this puzzling will, and he's assembled a group of people and the reader who need to work and solve this mystery. The next one is Hatchet by Gary Paulson, and this exposes a subgenre that I love, and it's survivalist stories. I like survival in the wilderness, but I also love stories of like settlers building up something out of nothing. So like just that whole of making do with nature and a few tools and your own knowledge. Like, I love those kind of stories. But anyways, Hatchet by Gary Paulson. This is the story about a boy, Brian, who survives a plane crash in Canada, and all he has is this hatchet. And so he has to learn how to survive in the wild with this hatchet, while also hopefully finding some means of rescue. I do love a good girl story too, Anne of Green Gables. Besides Ramona Quimby, was one of the first characters that I just identified with, fell in love with. This girl who's a little bit whimsical, loves books, and so in some ways I felt like I was like a little Anne Shirley. Anne is an orphan girl who comes to live with the siblings Marilla and Matthew Cuthbert on Prince Edward Island. And Anne is very much an imaginative, head in the clouds kind of a girl, and Marilla is very practical. Matthew's just a sweetie. And so there's a lot of funny and just endearing encounters between Anne and this community as she's trying to kind of find her place in the world. And both the reader and the community just come to love this girl. So this is Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone by J.K. Rowling. This was another one where it just was so different from the kinds of books I was reading at the age I was when this came out. So I'm one of those who kind of grew up with the Harry Potter series. And so it's just so different and exciting. So this boy discovers he's a wizard, and he encounters this whole world that he didn't even know existed. And it's written in such a way where you could kind of suspend your disbelief and hope, oh, maybe this actually exists in my world, you know, knowing it really doesn't. But this boy also finds out that he actually survived one of the most evil wizards. And so he has this fame that's already following him before he even knew what this world was. It's just a classic fantasy story. The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn by Mark Twain. So this is a classic, and I also recommend reading The Adventures of Tom Sawyer, but I liked Huck Finn better. Huckleberry Finn has a mean dad, and he's become friends with Tom Sawyer and gotten a taste for adventure, and they run away, and they meet a runaway slave, Jim, and they have this adventure on the Mississippi River as they're trying to get away from home and slavery. This is one I want to reread before I read the book James by Percival Everett. That's the story told from Jim's point of view, the runaway slave. And I've heard it's amazing. So if you also want to read James, I recommend reading Huckleberry Finn first, especially if you've never read it before, and get familiar with the story and then read James. James is not a middle grade book, so let's get back to our middle grade books. Another one, I feel like I talked about this recently. I don't know where it came up, but Okay for Now by Gary D. Schmidt. This is one of my favorite middle grade books. I love Gary D. Schmidt. You should also read The Wednesday Wars, because this boy Doug is also in The Wednesday Wars. But this is another coming of age story that takes place during the Vietnam War. And this boy has a mean old dad and a mean brother and a brother in the Vietnam War. And this boy, Doug, he moves to a new town. He has, a really tough home life. And you kind of see him wrestle with, just being the problem child and the bully too, or kind of finding his place in this little town, befriending different characters, and just finding that maybe he doesn't have to perpetuate this bully cycle that he lives in. But it is just endearing. It's funny. It's sweet. It's also heartbreaking. It's just a really great book. The next is My Side of the Mountain by Jean Craighead George, and this is another just survival kind of book that, it's just the subgenre that I really appreciate. There's this boy, Sam, who runs away from home into the Catskill Mountains, and he decides he's going to survive in the wild. And so you see him struggle with that and observing nature, and it's beautiful nature writing as well as this boy's adventure. Most of these middle grade books I've shared are ones that I grew up with, or were even earlier, like classics. This is one that I consider to be more modern. I consider it modern if it was written since my children were born. This is Ghost by Jason Reynolds. This is the first in a series that's following this elite track team. And so the first one is about this boy who goes by the name Ghost. He's so fast, and he has this natural talent for running, and he's discovered by Coach. But Ghost has kind of a tough home life as well, and just a bit of a traumatic past, and so he's a little bit of a troublemaker, just, kind of having a hard time of finding his place in the world. And this guy, Coach, takes him under his wing, both to kind of train him in life as well as in running. And it's really a great sports and just life story. Those are 10 of my favorite middle grade books. I have a few on my list of what I want to read this month that I have not read yet. You already know Charlotte's Web is one I have not read. So we'll see how many I get through by the end of the month. But the nice thing with middle grade is they tend to be fairly quick reads too. So even if you haven't started any middle grade for March, you can start now and pick one that I just recommended. But let me know if you've read any of these and if you have any that you recommend I should read. Thank you for watching. I'll see you whenever.